You know, that feeling. You're listening to English, maybe it's a fast bit in a movie, or someone talking naturally on a podcast. And suddenly it's like your brain just stops. It just freezes up.
Yeah, completely. You hear sounds, right, but the actual meaning.
It just sails right past you.
Exactly. It feels like this huge wall.
Right. That real struggle of wanting to understand English better, speak more confidently, but just feeling overwhelmed. Maybe by how fast people talk or just words you don't know.
That feeling is incredibly common. It really highlights the gap between just passively hearing the sounds and actually processing the language for meaning.
Yeah.
And, well, the sheer speed and flow of native speech, it can definitely feel like way too much sometimes.
Totally. Yeah, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got this stack of sources you pulled together, all focused on, well, tackling this exact challenge. Our mission here is to pull out the most effective, practical things they suggest. Actual methods to help you really boost your English listening skills.
And often, surprisingly quickly, many of these things, the sources say, can be done in, like, just 10 minutes a day.
Which is amazing. What really struck me about these sources is how accessible they make it sound.
Yeah.
They're not saying you need, hours locked away studying.
Not at all. They point to these really powerful practices you can just weave into your normal day.
Right. And we found some real gems in there, like how just talking to yourself can apparently be kind of secret weapon for getting more fluent.
Oh, yeah, that one's interesting.
And why watching cartoons like kids shows might actually be a brilliant move for learning.
Or even cooking shows. How watching someone bake a cake could improve your English. It sounds odd, but there's logic to it.
It's all about finding these smart ways to get consistent exposure and, importantly, active practice.
The active part is key.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the absolute foundation, the thing that just kept coming up again and again in these sources, is consistency.
Yes, absolutely central.
They really hit home that practicing every single day, even if it's just for short bursts they mentioned 10 minutes so many times, is incredibly effective.
Much more so than, say, a long, intense study session once a week.
Exactly. It's not about these marathon listening sessions.
And they draw this really crucial line, don't they, between just having English on in the background and active listening.
Yeah, explain that distinction.
Well, active listening isn't just background noise. It means you're deliberately focusing your attention. The sources talk about tuning your ear specifically to the sounds, the rhythm of the language, how words link together in sentences to create meaning.
So you're really engaging your brain.
Yeah.
Trying to decode it, basically.
Precisely. And their argument across the board is that doing this consistently, even for just those 10 minutes a day, builds your understanding way more effectively than trying to cram.
Consistency is the engine.
It really is. That regular short exposure keeps those language pathways in your brain active. It reinforces vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, just much more efficiently than sporadic effort.
Okay, so daily active practice. Got it. And the sources give loads of ideas for what to listen to, right? The variety was kind of amazing.
Oh, definitely. They cover all the usual suspects. Songs, podcasts, TV shows, movies, news, radio, things people might already be doing.
Right.
But I also point specifically to content that's maybe more tailored for learners. Things like podcasts made for English students or news clips from places like VOA Learning English.
Those often use slightly simpler language. You maybe speak a bit slower.
Exactly. They can be a good starting point. And they get even more specific: audiobooks, TED Talks, cooking shows, like we mentioned, sports commentary, interviews.
It seems like the big message there is pick something you actually like.
Yes. And that's not just a throwaway comment. There's a core reason behind it.
Which is?
Motivation. And sticking with it. If you force yourself to listen to, say, political debates when you hate politics.
Yeah. Those 10 minutes are going to feel like an hour.
Exactly. You'll dread it. But if you listen to something about your hobby, travel, food, video games, whatever, it doesn't feel like work anymore.
It becomes enjoyable.
Right. And that enjoyment is what makes you keep coming back day after day. It turns practice into leisure.
That makes total sense. Making it fun is key. Okay, but even if you're listening to something you love, you're going to hit problems. Words you don't know, accents you can't quite grasp, people talking a mile a minute. What do the sources say about handling those moments?
They're quite practical on this. First, unfamiliar words. The advice is basically, don't panic. Don't stop everything to grab a dictionary for every single word.
Okay, so what do you do?
Try to guess from the context.
Yeah.
Use the words around it. They gave a simple example, like hearing the weather was terrible. Even if terrible is new, you can probably figure out it means bad from the context of weather.
Use the cruise.
Exactly. And if you're watching something, pay attention to the speaker's tone, their facial expressions, gestures. Those give you extra clues.
Rely on the whole picture, not just the one word. That's good advice. What about accents? English has so many. American, British, Australian, Indian, Scottish.
Yeah, countless variations. The sources are really clear here.
Yeah.
The only way to get better is exposure. Simple as that.
Just listen more.
Listen to people from different places. They admit it's hard at first. It can feel like you're trying to crack a new code with each accent. But the more you listen, the more your ear, your brain just adapts. It starts to recognize the different patterns, the different sounds. You're basically training your ear.
So variety helps with accents, and just being patient while your brain catches up. Okay, what about speed? When people just talk really, really fast.
Well, the suggestion is to start where you're comfortable. Maybe begin with those learner podcasts or kids shows we mentioned, where the pace is often slower and clearer.
Makes sense. Build up gradually.
Right, and if you're listening to something faster and you hit a part that's just a blur, use the rewind button.
Don't just let it wash over you.
No. Go back, listen to that tricky bit again. And again, if you need to.
That came up a lot, didn't it? Replaying things, they seem to think that was really powerful.
Because it is. Each time you listen, you usually catch a little bit more. Your brain has another chance to process it.
Okay. And this kind of leads into using support tools, right? Like transcripts or subtitles.
Yes, exactly. They highlight transcripts and subtitles as super useful tools. But there's a key point here.
What?
Using English subtitles. Watching and reading along in English helps you connect the sounds you're hearing with the actual written words. It reinforces spelling, meaning, everything.
So you see the word as you hear it.
Precisely. The advice is often to maybe watch first with English subtitles, then try watching again without them. Sort of gradually reduce your reliance on the text.
And they warned against using subtitles in your own native language, right?
They did, because what tends to happen is your brain just defaults to reading the translation.
So you're not really practicing listening to the English anymore.
Exactly. You're bypassing the skill you're trying to build. You're just reading.
Got it. Okay. Another strategy they mentioned was focusing on keywords to get the main idea, even if you miss some stuff.
That's really important. It's about not getting totally lost or discouraged if you miss a few words. Try to grab the main nouns, verbs, the key pieces of information.
Understand the gist.
Yes. Understanding the main point is a huge win. Don't get bogged down trying to catch every single preposition or article perfectly, especially at first.
Right. Okay, here's where I thought it got really interesting. The sources don't just talk about listening as like a passive thing you receive.
No, not at all.
They show how you can actually use your listening practice to seriously improve your speaking skills at the same time.
This is such a powerful connection they make. Listening isn't just input. It's like the raw material and the blueprint for your own speaking.
So how do you bridge that gap? What techniques did they highlight?
One of the main ones was shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, remind us what that is.
It's where you listen to someone speaking English and you try to repeat what they say almost immediately after them, like your shadow.
Okay. Why is that supposed to be so good?
Well, the sources explain it trains your mouth and brain to work together in English. You're practicing the rhythm, the intonation, the flow of natural speech in real time.
So it helps with your accent and how smooth you sound.
Definitely. And it also helps your brain kind of think faster in English because you're processing and producing almost simultaneously without stopping to translate in your head.
Wow, okay. It sounds kind of intense, though.
It can be. They suggest starting small. Just shadow short phrases or sentences. Don't worry about being perfect. Focus on mimicking the sound and the rhythm. They even give examples, like repeating simple greetings or questions. Good morning, how are you today? Just saying it right after the speaker.
Got it. Start simple. And singing along the songs was mentioned too, right? As a fun way to do something similar.
Yeah. Another way to leverage enjoyment. Focus on the chorus, maybe. Get the hang of that. Then maybe look up the lyrics later. It's great practice for pronunciation and rhythm.
Makes sense. What else? There was something about summarizing.
Yes, summarizing. So after you listen to something, a podcast segment, a news story, whatever, you try to quickly summarize the main points.
How does that help?
Two main ways. First, it forces you to check if you actually understood it. You have to process and organize the information.
Okay.
But second, and maybe more importantly, it makes you produce language. You have to use English, maybe vocabulary or phrases you just heard, to explain the ideas yourself, either speaking it aloud or writing it down.
So it connects listening comprehension directly to speaking or writing practice.
Exactly. Another technique that came up a lot was repeating phrases or dialogues.
Right, just repeating lines you hear.
Yes, but with a focus on how they're said.
Yeah.
Not just the words, but imitating the tone, the intonation, the speed. The sources really emphasize this.
Why is imitating the tone so important?
Because that's how you sound natural.
Yeah.
And it's also how you understand emotion and attitude. Listening for how someone's voice goes up when they're surprised, really, or gets softer when they're uncertain, maybe, helps you understand those nuances.
Oh.
And practicing saying things with that same intonation makes your own English much more expressive and helps you convey your meaning more clearly.
That makes a lot of sense. And then we get to the secret weapon.
Yes. Speaking to yourself.
Why do they call it that? A secret weapon.
Because it's incredibly powerful but maybe overlooked. The key is that it removes all the pressure.
No audience.
Exactly. No one's listening, no one's judging, there's no fear of making mistakes. You just talk.
What did you talk about?
Anything.
Yeah.
Your day, your plans, describe what you're doing, summarize something you read. The point is, it trains your brain to think directly in English, to formulate thoughts without translating.
And it builds confidence, presumably. Because you're successfully speaking English, even if just to yourself.
Massively. It's a safe space to just practice producing the language.
Yeah. They also had some fun ideas, like acting out stories, especially kids' stories.
Yeah, making it playful. Good for confidence, good for practicing different voices and expressions. And they mentioned flashcards for new words, but stress you shouldn't just memorize definitions.
Right, you need to use them.
Use them in sentences, listen for them when you hear English, connect the word to actual spoken language.
So it's all about active engagement.
Yeah.
Okay, beyond these specific techniques, the sources also talk about tools and just your general environment.
Language learning apps, gotta mention. They can be convenient, offer structured audio, exercises, sometimes even pronunciation feedback.
Good for practice on the go, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Especially apps with clear audio. And then there are online communities, forums, language exchange apps, speaking clubs.
Ways to connect with other people.
Right. Opportunities to hear lots of different voices, maybe get some feedback, and just learn socially.
And finally, just the simple idea of surrounding yourself with English.
Yeah, like changing your phone language, putting English labels on things around the house, maybe having English radio on sometimes.
Just making it more present in your daily life.
Exactly. So it feels less like a separate study subject and more just part of your world.
Okay, so pulling all this together, the sources didn't just focus on what to do, but also how to approach it mentally. The mindset part seems really important too.
Hugely important. Patience was a big theme. Learning takes time. You will hit difficult patches, confusing accents, fast speech.
And the messages.
Don't get discouraged.
Okay.
Stick with it. Keep doing that consistent practice and it will get easier. Your understanding improves gradually.
And being okay with making mistakes.
Absolutely. Viewing mistakes not as failures, but just data, part of the learning curve. Learn from them, whether it's feedback from a teacher or friend or just noticing something when you practice alone.
Practicing alone helps reduce that fear of mistakes too.
For sure. And setting goals came up as well.
Little goals.
Yeah, small, achievable daily or weekly goals. Like, this week I'll understand one short news clip without subtitles, or I'll practice shadowing for 5 minutes every day.
And tracking that progress.
Write it down, use an app, whatever works. Seeing that you are making progress, even small steps, is incredibly motivating. Celebrate those little wins.
Definitely keeps you going. And they also mentioned taking breaks.
Yes. Don't try to overload yourself. Short breaks help your brain actually absorb what you've listened to. Spreading practice out maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes later can be better than one long, tiring session.
Sustainable effort. Makes sense.
Yeah. Quality over just quantity of time crammed in.
Okay, so what does this all mean? When we boil it all down, what's the core message from all these sources?
Well, I think if you distill it, the message is actually really empowering. It's saying that improving your English listening isn't some kind of magic trick. It's totally achievable through consistent, active, daily practice, even if it's just for those short 10-minute bursts. It's about engaging with lots of different sources, especially ones you enjoy.
Using smart tactics when you hit difficulties.
Right. guessing words, replaying sections, using English subtitles strategically, and crucially, linking listening to speaking, using techniques like shadowing or summarizing.
So listening practice actively builds your speaking confidence and fluency too.
Exactly. It's a very practical, step-by-step process. Each bit of consistent effort builds both your understanding and your ability to use the language yourself.
So the key takeaway seems crystal clear, that focused, active listening practice, even just 10 minutes daily, with varied stuff you like, using these active techniques, it really works. It's a proven way to get much better at understanding English.
Absolutely. So the challenge for you, the listener, is maybe to pick just one or two ideas we talked about today.
Don't try to do everything at once.
No, start small. Maybe try listening to a short cartoon clip with the English subtitles on, or try shadowing just 2 or 3 sentences from a podcast you like.
And the key is making it a habit.
Make it daily, even if it's tiny. That consistency is really where the magic happens over time.
Definitely. And here's a final thought to leave you with, something that kind of emerged from thinking about all this. This whole process of active listening, really training yourself to focus on meaning, on tone, on rhythm, not just hearing sounds. It doesn't just improve your English, does it?
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like it trains your brain to be a better listener overall, more attentive, maybe more insightful in any situation, in any language.
That's a really interesting point. It's honing a fundamental skill of engagement.
Exactly. So maybe the question isn't just how much better your English will get, but what else might you start to notice? What else might you discover in all parts of your life if you really practice listening deeply?